It's really awesome to have you here, Rhinox.
Well, it's lovely to be here. I actually stopped doing interviews for a while and kind of gave my head a shake recently and thought, yeah, it's time to dive back into the water and kind of get to know you guys.
So am I the first out of the ones that in the gap or
Yes, this is the first time I've done an interview, perhaps since, oh gosh, since the pandemic. I think that had a lot to do with it. I think, we all of us just kind of shut down and closed off for the last year and a half. So
yeah.
it's time to open up and reach out.
And that's what I did on January 20th when Biden was inaugurated. And that was the day I interviewed Michael Bell.
What soap were you on?
It was called Morning Star. It was a precursor to Days of Our Lives.
Lovely. Yeah, that was a great day.
Question number one.
Yes.
You told me that you were from my time zone, yet somehow you made it to Tim Horton country.
That's true.
What precipitated that?
Well, I was going to theater school in San Francisco. The American Conservatory Theater had the conservatory, a theater program, and I was a student there. And I met a young woman from Canada who was kind of on borrowed time in the States, but she was enrolled in the program. And there was this Vietnam thing going on at the time. So she and I kind of thought, we liked each other. It was 1969, and we decided to get married. And then we actually kind of got along with each other. Anyway, at one point, she came back up to Canada. I came up to visit her while I was on a break at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And while I was in Canada, I thought, well, I'll audition. I'll find out if there's anybody auditioning. And wound up auditioning for a children's theater company, and they hired me. So in August of 1970, I packed up my little Hillman and drove it up across the border and began life in Canada. And I thought to myself that it was like the next gig and I'd be back in the States fairly soon. And in fact, I'm still waiting to leave.
I wouldn't hurry if I were you.
No, actually, I'm really perfectly happy to be living in a country that does not consider itself the policeman of the world. And certainly with what's going on down there right now. I have a child in New York, and it's every day it worries me, I have to say.
My only brother is in New York too.
Well, there you go. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I'm an uncle as of 2 years ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, and they live where John Machida was from.
Oh yeah, John.
He was from Long Island. That's where my brother and his wife lived.
Long Island. Long Island.
I only forgot for a moment. Just so that you don't feel lonely, I brought Ian Corlett for a visit.
Oh, hi, Ian. Jimmy.
Know, big butt.
Venus.
Oh, hello.
Sometimes I thought she sounded like Susan Blue.
Interesting. Well, I mean, they both have kind of soprano-ish voices, although very, lovely and talented individuals they are. I've worked with both and adore them both. They're both really neat ladies.
I don't have an actual Rhinox figure.
Ram horn! Ram the ram-a-lam-a ding-dong out of those suckers!
But I think this is a fair representation of you.
Hey, not bad.
It's a Titan's Return version of Ramhorn from the original series.
Oh.
But in robot mode, I used his head on a Frank Welker bot.
Oh,
I'm ready. What about you, RC?
You couldn't stop me.
So that's you in robot mode, closest I could get. What's that thing that Rhinox always said when he was at his most worrisome?
Oh, gee, now you're going to ask me a question that I have to remember something that happened 25 years ago.
Or I could bail you out.
Go ahead, bail me out.
Primus, help us all.
I've also got the MacGuffin of Beast Wars.
Oh, the discs.
Where did your aspirations for voice acting come from? Was there a catalyst, or was it a long-standing desire?
It was just the next gig that came up. Actually, the first time that I can remember doing a voice gig was when I was in theater school in San Francisco, and somebody was doing this alphabet thing based on Sherlock Holmes, and they brought me in to be the Dr. Watson and a whole bunch of other little characters. And it was a gig. It was, I was going to theater school. My dream, of course, was to act in Shakespeare and all that stuff. But in the meantime, you basically have to do it all. You're trying to work on screen, and you're trying to work on stage, and you're trying to work in the recording studio, and it's all grist for the mill. It all teaches you something. So it wasn't so much that I really had a hunger to do voice work as voice work became something that I was offered and that I was fairly adept at. So it was another little tool to keep me off the streets and out of trouble.
What would you say are the most significant technological changes that you've seen in the voiceover industry since you first broke into it?
It is so easy now. There are so many ways now that people will let you know when you're supposed to start speaking and when you're supposed to stop speaking. There's beeps, and there's sometimes there's a crawl. When I started doing actual kind of dialogue replacement would have been, I guess, in Miami in the mid 80s. And we had nothing but when the man's mouth opened, you spoke. And when he stopped his mouth, you were supposed to be done. I learned to do this without any of those aids, which, of course, when the aids came up, it kind of put me in really good stead, because I could get a lot done in less time than other folks, because I've already had a lot of experience doing it without any of those aids. So I'd say that's one of the biggest things. Some years back in 1997, I was in Toronto doing Angels in America on stage, and wound up working for Nelvana, doing Franklin mostly. And I did the first season of Franklin in Toronto because we were there doing the show, but then I came back to Vancouver. 5 years before that, had Franklin continued, I would have had to fly back to Toronto every so often to record episodes. Now I can record them over the phone, basically, because the technology allows me to do that. I mean, you have to have special phone lines and all that sort of stuff, but the technology is there. I recorded everything but the first 13 episodes of Franklin, and there are close to 130 half hours and 4 specials and all this stuff. And I did almost all of it from out here in Vancouver with, on the phone to Toronto. So there have been ways in which the work has been made much, much easier and much less centralized. I mean, there would have been a time where if you didn't live in Toronto, Montreal, you weren't going to work because you needed to be close enough to New York and Chicago, right?
I know that thing.
So I would say those are the 2 biggest things that I have noticed in terms of that have influenced, my making a living.
Question number 4 is about card captors, but I'm going to skip it for now because I want to, break the ice a little more. The process of rehearsing for a role would be different for an on-screen actor than for a voice actor. But what are the challenges that you face when you have a script in front of you on that music stand in that studio?
And this, I'll tell you an interesting story. When I first started doing a little bit of directing in the recording studio, and I brought in some of my stage actor friends, theater actors, I thought they'd be wonderful. And they basically, this is all that they were using, and it didn't work with some of them. It just unless they could stride and I don't know what it was, but there was something that kind of inhibited them about just having to work with from the throat to the top of the head. So I suppose the most important thing is to realize that you do have your whole body to use. I mean, if you were to see the recording of a fight scene in the studio with all these actors kind of punching the air and doing all this nonsense, you'd roll on the floor laughing, and often we do when the take is done. So yes, one of the toughest things is probably creating life and motion out of basically having to stand this close to the microphone and make sure that the pickup of the sound is consistent, right? So yeah, it's and again, acting on stage is different than acting in film. Acting in film, all of a sudden you're doing this, you're not doing anything at all, because film just magnifies everything. And on stage, if you did that, everybody would be going, get me a hearing aid. Yeah, there are slight differences in opinion. I always compare the difference between playing acoustic guitar and electric guitar.
I know that example pretty well because my dad, his pride and joy is this Epiphone Les Paul that he used to let me use. And he used to have a Gibson Les Paul, and he's played electric and acoustic. So all my life, I've known that example.
Well, so there you go. It's they are the same construction, but they take different techniques in order to make them sound as good as they can sound. And you see some, wonderful electric players who are also wonderful acoustic players.
So that brings up two tangents here. Number one, your friends, if they had a problem, not being able to do this, they should go to Mark Hamill when he's, I'm talking about.
He is marvelous. I've been watching a series called What We Do in the Dark, What We Do in the Shadows, which is a docu-comedy about a house full of vampires on Staten Island in New York. And it's quite hilarious. And Mark Hamill appeared as a guest in a couple of the episodes, playing an enemy of one of the vampires. It's very, very funny. And when you think of his breakthrough role, which was not very funny at all, and the things that he's doing now, which are quite hilarious and out there, good for him. He's having fun.
Wait, do you mean Luke Skywalker or Kent Murray from General Hospital?
Well, I'd never watched General Hospital, so that one I would have missed. But I guess I'm talking about Luke Skywalker. Yes, yep. It's a very serious young man.
You didn't see that one coming, did you? Did you know that Leonard Nimoy was also on there?
In Star Wars?
No.
Oh, in General Hospital?
Yeah.
I did not. Isn't that interesting? No, I had a girlfriend actually many, many years ago who watched General Hospital, but I generally left the room if I was home at the time. Kind of that was her thing. My thing was hockey games. So.
Well, I found out a couple of interesting things when I interviewed Michael Bell. He was on Morning Star, and so was John Stevenson and Norm Alden, it was made before, and then it spun off into Days of Our Lives. And also, Michael Bell was also in Star Wars as Commander Willard. I mean, I was floored when he told me that.
There's so many times it's like there are nostalgia TV stations now, and you watch old episodes of The Twilight Zone or Have Gun Will Travel, and there's a young Robert Redford or a young, it's oh my gosh, look at that. So yeah, it's quite fun to troll through that old stuff and see guys doing their very first shot at a big TV role.
Attention to everyone watching this video cast. There is nothing wrong with your set. We just ask you to like and subscribe to this episode that you are watching if you have not already. Go ahead, we'll wait.
Very good. Now, for those of you who just sat there and have not subscribed to this channel, let shame pollute your britches. That's right, I said it. We now return to voice overview. Were there ever times when you've had to do a pickup, one line you've ever had that was just so difficult and you couldn't do it in the normal amount?
Well, that happens on a fairly regular basis. I would say there is one line in virtually every session that gives somebody grief, and whether it's a timing thing, whether it's it's a mush mouth thing, it's just kind of, no, you have to do it again, you have to do it again. Sometimes it's embarrassing if there's a whole bunch of people in the room and you're having to kind of do it 20 times. Sometimes it just is silly, it's funny, it's dumb. It's easiest to deal with when you're looping, when you're dubbing, because you're the only guy in the room, you and the two and the engineer and the director, right? Yep. So yeah, it's just, that's a laugh riot. But you don't like to keep your friends waiting, and the fear, my God, am I ever going to get this one? This is it. I'm going to go mad. They're going to carry me out of here in a straitjacket. This will be the line.
So for regular animation, does that happen more so than when you're doing dubbing?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure that I could answer it honestly. I think no. I think probably because of the fact that, we're trying to get this half-hour show recorded in 4 hours. That's what the union gives them at the amount of money that they're paying us just for the session. So for us, it's like, yeah, 4 hours, that's fine. But if we can get it done in 2.5 hours, that's fine too. If we do it well, that's our work day. It's done.
From what I've learned, that never would have happened at Wally Burr Studios.
Well, Wally was a piece of work, and he had his ideas about how it was supposed to be, and could be rather obstreperous about enforcing his will.
Al Rail told me that Burr was the reason that they had that strike in 1985, I think, or somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah, it may well be. I got back into the voice industry here in about 89. And prior to that, I was kind of just bouncing back and forth between theater and film and TV. So that would have happened actually before I was sort of involved. But I had words with Wally once, and that was all was needed. And then he and I got along after that just fine. Yeah, he could be accused of over-directing.
Well, it wasn't any vocal errors that did anything to Transformers or G.I. Joe. It was the overseas animation. So got to give Wally his credit where it's due. And
absolutely.
That's led to the success of Beast Wars.
Oh, no. And the guy, I could have sworn the first time I heard him speak, I thought, he's the guy that goes, batteries not included, one size fits all, blah, blah, blah. And, I could have sworn because he had that voice. And he'd, of course, made his bones as an actor and then turned that into, being the director that he was. But he had a home studio, and he would basically just sit in his basement or wherever that studio was and, live life, going from one session to the next to the next.
I'm noticing that that's kind of a cycle where a voice actor or actor climbs up and then goes back in as a director. Wally Burr for Transformers, Michael Bell with Fox's Peter Pan the Pirates, and Susan Blue with Beast Wars.
Well, Susan was directing a lot of different things. I worked with her on several projects, and she's a marvelous director. She's just a marvelous director. There are directors who think they can get a really good performance out of you by intimidation, and then there are those directors who will kind of coax a really good performance out of you because they have the language to be able to speak. This is what we need. Oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. And Susan creates such a safe space, such a wonderfully safe space. It's just, when I go to work with her, or when I have gone to work with her, it's been a long time. But whenever I have gone to work with her, it's kind of, with a smile on my face, I get to work with Sue Blue today. So yeah, she's a very gentle, generous person and tremendously talented as a director, as an actor, just a really, really neat person.
I want to put an asterisk here that I would give my left toes. I need my fingers for court stenography.
I understand. No, yeah, you want to keep your fingers. Reminds me of an old Alfred Hitchcock Presents, I think. But yes, never mind.
Susan Blue, I look up to her as a voice actor and for the excellent work she's done in her profession, verily deserving of her place in the Transformers Hall of Fame. What was your experience with her being under her direction? Lee Takar, he gave me nothing but raves about Susan Blue, and it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I just want to have it reinforced by another member of the cast.
Oh no, absolutely. I would look forward to any opportunity to work with Sue. She's just a great, lovely human. Just hanging out with her is fun, much less working with her. Great person.
Of course, I came to know her on the opposite end of the spectrum, and whereas you worked with her, I watched the cartoons that she was a part of, Gemini Holograms, Transformers, and the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo with St. Louis legend Vincent Price.
Right.
I'm trying to make sure that everyone I interview knows that I don't just talk the talk when it comes to voice acting, that I do walk the walk and I do my due diligence.
Yes. Well, I kind of figured that when we first talked, because you had you knew a little bit more about me than I did.
Any other circumstance, that would be very disconcerting.
Yes, I guess it would be. Yes.
Yep, those are the dangers of working on a pedestal. Number 9, a few days ago, I, like the rest of the world, found out that Jack Angel died.
Yes.
In my research, came across a project that you and Gary Chalk and Jack Angel did in 2016 called Transformers Project Nemesis.
Okay.
Well, you're in the credits.
Yes, I'm sure that's true, and I'll bet it was an ADR gig. It would have been a dubbing gig, like that. They would have drawn that in Japan, and then we would have revoiced it in Canada.
That's not really the vibe that I got from it. It was just a bunch of stop motion with action figures.
Okay. That's something else again then. But it was sort of, I know what that was. Yes, that was something that one of the fans did, I think, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
That's right. No. I remember that now, because I was going, when I read the question, I kind of went, huh. What was that? But no, I remember that. But again, that was something where they sent me the lines and they sent Gary the lines, and I have to assume they sent Jack the lines. We recorded them on our own, and then they put it all together. So I'm glad that I worked with Jack. When he passed, I kind of thought, oh, what a shame. I never got to meet him or work with him.
You inform me of the recent events. You say you have it all under control until now.
Engineers are working on the rock problem while we take a look at these crystals.
This has gone far enough. I cannot stand much more of this. Commander Rodimus is getting very restless. What do you suppose we do?
I've got the plan, if you've got the cast iron manifolds for it.
Be there within 24 hours. Do what you feel necessary before that time.
Until further orders, they're on emergency standby.
Where's the patient? All right, listen up. This Autobot's name is RC. She is dying from spark rupture. Our other sisters have perished in combat, leaving her in stasis lock. Only 1/3 of her spark remains. We must keep it from fading entirely. We've got 2 minutes, one chance at this. We are not going to let this fail.
So I'm actually glad to know that I at least got to work with him, even though I never got to meet him.
Moment of silence. It was amazing when I asked John Machida about the dubbing for the Transformers movie. He said that season 3 of Transformers was recorded first, before the movie was ever recorded. So that means that Robert Stack wasn't the first one to voice Ultra Magnus, but it was Jack Angel.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, by the time we started doing Beast Wars, we were doing the voices first, and then they would draw to what we did. And that's so much fun, because you get to play with the other actors. Everybody's in the room. Quite often, especially once you get into a series, like we would dispense with the table read after a while, because quite often that first take was the one you wanted to keep, that energy off reading it cold. I would say that certainly by season 2, we weren't really reading it in order to kind of, find out what was going on or what we needed to do. We just kind of wing it. And of course, you'd repeat stuff. You go, okay, that I hated that. Can I do that again? Or you'd get through a scene and you pick up this line, that line, the other line, or let's do that scene again. Basically, there was times when you do that. But yeah, the table reads probably stopped happening with Beast Wars, certainly, after the first, pretty much, yeah, I think pretty much any series that I've been in that's gone on for more than a season, more than, a half a dozen episodes, once you know who the character is, you want to try to jump on that energy as quickly as you can.
Well, maybe gone now, but I still stand by the statement that whenever I've envisioned myself being a voiceover artist, that I would be interacting with my voiceover heroes like I'm doing right now. I don't know. It's just fantasy that just really brightens the illusion for me.
Wow, that's cool. That's really neat. Listen, goals are good. Dreams are good. You got to live in hope. everything's, I envy anybody who's going to live longer than I am, because that's that much more time you're going to have to just enjoy the beauties of this existence. And they are myriad. There's a plethora of them.
Very good. So number 10 is one of the questions I ask every single voice actor, mainly because I have such a passion for it. Right around 1959, you would have been old enough to watch Rocky and Bullwinkle, right?
Oh, worship them, worship them, worship them.
Hello there. Today's poem is called Taffy. Taffy was a Welshman. Taffy was a thief.
You ain't kidding, governor.
Taffy came to my house and stole a piece of beef. Hey, that's a whole cow.
So I'm petting my partner.
In fact, I don't know about you, but I think the movie is brilliant.
The one from 2000.
Yes, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
I thought that June Foray coming back as Rocky, and
wasn't that grand?
Yes, and I think Keith Scott was the one who played Bullwinkle.
Only hope for humanity is a 400-pound talking moose. What's up? And a flying squirrel.
Rocky, you okay?
Just out of practice.
I want you to destroy them personally.
Smash them, smoosh them.
It kind of makes you feel discouraged.
We've never been in the real world before.
But when the world needs a hero,
I could fly if I had to.
He wasn't related to Bill Scott, the original Bullwinkle.
Right.
He's written a book, and your fellow Transformers alum, Corey Burton, he was part of the fan club, and I guess he got to know Bill Scott and Kit Scott. A lot of my voices that I can imitate are actually from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, wonderful.
Bill Conrad. Our scene opens today in an emergency session of the World Economic Council, attended by the greatest financial wizards of our time, including their chairman, fiduciary Jay Blurt. Paul Frees. We're face with disaster. Bill Scott. See, I'm fiduciary. Well, as we all know, the real basis of our world economy is not gold. No, not silver. No, not even uranium. No, but that solid, everlasting rock rib security of the buck stop.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
I can also do a very good Doss Butler, even though he was only in the fractured fairy tales and the Aesop's fables.
And Edward Everett Horton too, of course. God bless him. Oh, marvelous. No, we love the show. We looked forward to it every day. In fact, if it ever came to a fact where dinner was going to happen and Rocky and Bullwinkle, because it was on, I think, at 5:30 in the afternoon or something like that, too close to dinner. And sometimes we had to miss Rocky and Bullwinkle.
The humanity!
I always resented that.
Oh, man. We should have just had the TV trays out.
Well, unfortunately, my father judged things like that as, that's silly, that's silly, that's stupid.
Well, you should have said
that was it.
Right? It is, because Greg Berger told me.
I guess we both have really good taste.
It's as smart, funny, stupid ever got. And when people that smart are writing situations that's sometimes stupid, it comes out with an elevated level of humor that is, it's timeless, it's ageless, everybody gets it, nobody doesn't get it, and you just want more. You can't be, who wouldn't want to graduate from What's a Mata You?
It's like a beautiful dream, Rock.
Well, Natasha, it's great to be back on the campus. Boris, you went to college? Penn State? No, State Penn.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so corny, so wonderfully corny.
Yeah, but it's still a mainstay, and despite the fact that I only learned about Norman Mailer and Red Grange from that, it's still relevant.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just wonderful. I mean, season 2 was my favorite because they had these very extended stories at the beginning. The Upsidasium storyline, where Bullwinkle inherited a mine from his uncle Dewlap with this metal that defies gravity. And then the next one after that was the mystery of the metal munching moon mice. If it weren't for Jay Ward, we wouldn't have Quisp or Captain Crunch.
There you are.
Yep.
God bless him.
I'm only 35, and I'm really showing my age, aren't I?
Well, you're half my age. Well, actually, a little less than half my age. So there you are.
Age is
Or a little
only a
more
number.
than half. No, less. Yes, well, that's it. I have a 25-year-old kid, and I promised them that I would dance at their 50th birthday party. So I got 25 more years to kind of hang out, at least. In fact, I've kind of said, all right, we'll get to 100, and then we'll just sort of go, am I still having fun? Because if I'm still having fun, I'm hanging out. I'm going nowheres, you know. This is I'm enjoying this more than I ever have, possibly. So yeah.
One of the first things that you see on your IMDb profile is a show called Video Power.
Oh yeah.
So my impression of it, I didn't try to look for it on YouTube because I think I know what the first season was. It was a tip show for like video games, and there was a cartoon segment that you featured in.
That's basically true. It was who made the games? I can't even remember now. But it was
Sega, Atari.
But it was basically the heroes from 5 different of their games made this team, and the team would fight the villains from several of the other games. So basically, you're quite right. It was a medium by which to sell these video games. And in between the segments of cartoon, there was the human kid in the cartoon was personified, and he was the host of this show that would kind of talk about games and stuff like that. But yeah, it was basically a half-hour selling job. And I wound up playing 1 hero and 2 villains, which was lots and lots of fun.
Being Rhinox definitely set that into balance.
Well, interestingly enough, I rarely played the good guy.
Property of CDD. I'm guessing that last D is for donkey.
Quick as a whip, kid.
Now how about that C? Calvin, Calhoun, Caleb, Carl, Carmine, Carlo, Charlie, Chester, Chico, Claudio, Cletus, Clifford, Conroy, Cornelius, Cortez, Craig, Christopher,
Cranky! It's Cranky, all right?
And your middle name?
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
One more time. You're a cranky doodle donkey? You're a cranky doodle donkey guy. You're a cranky doodle donkey. I've never met you, but you're my new friend, and I'm your best friend, Pinkie Pie.
It was usually the "do not fail me." You know, that was sort of what I was known for. In fact, when I was in Toronto doing Angels, once the show had opened, then I called Nelvana and said, you know, hi, I'm in town. I do voice work. The casting director there knew who I was. Which surprised me, but she said, "Well, we're auditioning for this thing. You're not, you know, it's not for you, but come in, audition and meet the people." And it was Franklin's dad. It was a surprise to me that I got it because, of course, yeah, I at that point I had this year-old kid that I was kind of trying to figure out.
You know what that's in direct parallel to? That's sort of in direct parallel to Tim Curry.
Yes,
you know him as Pennywise and as Hook. But then he was also known as Nigel Thornberry in the Wild Thornberries.
Right.
Yeah. And he almost played the Joker in Batman the Animated Series.
Oh.
But Mark Hamill got the role because Tim Curry had bronchitis.
That's sort of like in The Wizard of Oz. Buddy Ebsen was meant to play the Tin Man, I think. And the paint made him ill and he had to drop out of the project, and that's when they brought Jack Haley in. There's something around that, but it's like, can you imagine that role without Jack Haley playing it, you know? So yeah, accidents. I played Roy Cohn because a friend of mine wound up with a film and had to drop out of the production. So the director kind of called me and said, "You want to do this?" I said, "Please, yeah." That was a wonderful role. Roy Cohn in Angels in America. Tremendous play. Wonderful play.
You know, another thought that I was going to bring up earlier when we were talking about plays and crossed my mind. I'm a huge Peter Pan fan.
Before Giles Morgenstern ever landed in Neverland Prime, there was one other boy who held out affection for the vivacious Solon Fire. He was none other than Peter's top lieutenant, the de facto leader of the Lost Boys, Slightly M. Zoyel, the brother of Nibs. He joins us now via Psycon to share what he knows. And
She was always energetic, to be sure, and could often show signs of a fiery temper. But that was just a
You know, I love Allison Williams and I love Kathy Rigby. I mean, I could fall in love with any tomboyish girl who could play Peter Pan. But when I see that one song, I'm Flying, the Kathy Rigby version,
right?
Because Mary Martin, even though she sired J.R. Ewing, she didn't do those twirls and flips. So it leads me to question if they pre-recorded her singing and then played it while she was flying, because
High up and as light as I can be. As he can be. I must be a sight lovely to see. Oh, yes, Rita, you are. I'm flying. Flying. Nothing will stop me now. Higher still. Look at how I can zoom around. Way up off the ground, I'm flying.
if I know voicing the way I think I do, if your body is in motion, it's not going to be clear enough to project to the audience the way that it would seem.
Yeah, I've often thought that. I wonder about that with, well, people who are singing and dancing at the same time. It always amazes me that their voices do not betray the fact that their bodies are doing this, right? So I don't really know. But that's a really interesting question.
But then when you try to dig through it and you try to listen to like another version of the song or like another source, it sounds almost exactly the same, indiscernible to the human ear.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's just part of the mystery, and I'd rather keep that alive.
The magic of the theater.
Very much so. You know, I can do a good David Kay.
Yes.
Very good stall. Keep it up. If no one can see Kay, then no one will be foolish enough to try and recapture him. If I can't stop him, Charles, your best bet is the danger room. I've got it ready.
Yes, that may slow him down, but it won't stop him.
Don't you have any kind of defense against him at all? Just one, my mind. With enough psychic blasts, I can disable him, unless he's wearing his helmet.
Yes. Yeah. Marvelous. That's wonderful. Yeah. You're a great mimic.
Yeah, that's one of the attributes that I have. But
you know, doing Bugs Bunny was what got Jeff Boydman going, but it's not much of a career launcher for anybody else.
Yeah, that's the one thing I can't do is I don't really imitate well. I don't hear that in my own ear. But that's a talent. That's a talent, my friend.
From my research, you make a pretty good Santa Claus.
Well, yes. I mean, and a Santa Claus just has to talk like this. That's all.
I can also do a good Edward Asner.
Oh, wonderful.
Although it's kind of undiscovered country for me because I've never really heard him talk other than like he's in some kind of a rant.
Well, mostly that's what he's been called upon to do. It's very interesting because he's like the sweetest guy in the world. And yet, because of what he looks like and what he sounds like, he gets I got cast as these irascible types.
Not necessarily true in Gargoyles, because he was one of the more soft-spoken parts of the cast.
Right.
Speaking of Disney, one of the things I asked you prior to this interview was what I call the poor man's Disney movies. So the question is, the ones that you were a part of, the off-brand ones, and I don't mean that as an insult in any way.
No, of course not.
It's just a misunderstood concept to a lot of people. Were there things about it that you think gave them merit in a way that Disney could never do?
Now, which films are you specifically talking about?
I'm not sure. I didn't really get a good list of them going, but I think like maybe Cinderella's, stuff that was based like on Hans Christian Andersen stuff.
Right.
Just
yeah,
classical kind of stories.
See, I thought when you were mentioning this, you were talking about something that we did 30 years ago called Funky Fables, which was a really kind of a loose around the edges drawn again overseas, and we dubbed it, and it was like you had your Peter Pan and your Snow White and all these things, but they were all kind of off.
So basically, it was like fractured fairy tales and Aesop's.
It's sort of like that, but even more primitively drawn. Kind of at the beginning of that sort of, we're not even going to pretend we're trying to draw well phase of animation. But I don't know. I think everything that you try, everything you set out to do, you're setting out to do it well. You're hoping that it's going to be, for no other reason than self-interest. Yes, I want this movie of whatever it is to be a huge success, because that maybe will mean that I'll get more work. I think we always try to give it our best. Sometimes the writing lets us down, sometimes the animation lets us down, but that is the same. I'm sure that every actor who's ever taken on a movie that's gone into the toilet has thought at one point, well, this has the possibility of really being good, and then it isn't.
Well, I don't feel sorry for James Franco when it comes to Sausage Party. I am sorry. Whoever came up with that movie, the cast deserved to have.
Yeah, that was when I just kind of thought, no, I just think I'm gonna stay away from this one.
I actually had to get a voucher for me and my friend that we went to see it for, because we didn't stay more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So god awful. I mean, there's great things out there, and I think the top apex is everything related to Transformers and GI Joe, which you were a part of both. Because
yes, that's true. That's true. I had a good time doing GI Joe.
The particle beam will explode in 60 seconds.
Excuse me, but did you say 60 seconds?
Then there's the low stuff like Ren and Stimpy, where it's and Rick and Morty, where it's trying to be shocking on purpose.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. Other people,
no, I agree with you. I don't care if it's, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason. It's like I say, I don't mind playing the most villainous son of a bitch that's ever existed on the planet, but there's got to be a reason. There's got to be something that we say that kind of points to the world the way it should be, or this character has to have some sort of comeuppance. It's like there's enough negativity in the world. I think we need to point towards the positive. So if in playing a bad person, I help move the world toward the positive, that's fine with me, because villains are actually more fun to play anyway.
Yeah, I have to agree. Especially if you do it in a kind of a David Warner type of way.
He was one of my favorites. I felt so bad for what happened to him.
What happened to him?
Oh, he had some kind of a, what was it, a stroke or something, which kind of really, pardon?
I thought that was Tim Curry.
No. It was David Warner had some kind of a, because he came back. I think the first thing he did afterwards was that awful Sam Peckinpah movie, Straw Dogs, with Dustin Hoffman, where he played the kind of retarded, if you'll pardon the expression, the challenged.
I understand.
Member of this community that the town is trying to get at, and Dustin Hoffman winds up protecting, but he hardly spoke because that was the character. I think he got better, but he was a wonderful actor. There was just something so brooding about him.
There's a collective that I always refer to whenever I'm talking to voice actors, and it encompasses 4 specific actors. We've already touched on 2 of them: Tim Curry and David Warner. The other is Tony J. And
I'm sorry?
Is Malcolm McDowell.
Oh, I love Malcolm McDowell.
They are the axis of evil. I mean, when I told Greg Berger about it, he said, I don't disagree.
No, I think they're some very, very talented men. My generation, who did I admire? I admired Olivier and Gil Good, of course, and Bogart. Bogart, not so much because he was a marvelous actor, but because the persona that he brought to the screen was so compelling that you just couldn't help but watch.
I was surprised when I saw that one movie where he played a villain. And he was wearing this this flannel hunting outfit, and they were holding this family captive in their own house. I'm not sure.
Oh, sure. Yes. Desperate Hours.
Yeah,
Tremendous. And in fact, his first film was pretty much the same thing, a Petrified Forest, where he is a crook and he and his cohorts are holding this group of people hostage on a.
I still find that very hard to believe because, I mean, I always knew him as Linus Larrabee and Sam Spade.
Right. Well, that's what an actor does, though. I mean, that's the whole idea, is to be able to, gosh, keep me from being cast as the same thing over and over and over again. That would drive me mad. I just love the idea of doing something I've never done before.
Speaking of Sabrina, have you ever seen that movie?
No, I have not. I haven't.
You know who William Holden is, though, right?
William Holden. Oh, sure, of course. What am I talking about? Yes, of course.
Yeah, I can actually do sort of an impression of him. Miss McCardle, are you gonna open that door, or do I have to force my way in using your head as a battering ram? Miss David, make up your mind.
Fabulous.
Have interests that are very different from people of my generation, and probably even in millennials. But I take great pride in that, and I like being able to share things with people from other times, other generations, share something in common, and to be liked. I mean,
absolutely. No, I think it's grand. And I mean, whatever interests you, it's like there's nothing more boring than trying to be interested in what other people are interested in so that you can have something to relate to them. Find the thing that you love to do, and the people that love to do it will gravitate towards you, and then you will have your community. That's anyway what I've always found to be true.
Well, at least once people start opening their eyes and start taking the pandemic seriously.
Well, please, yeah. Honestly, good old Missouri.
You a fan of REO Speedwagon too?
REO Speedwagon, gosh, I hardly remember them.
Can't Fight This Feeling, One Lonely Night, and Kevin Cronin, the lead singer.
Right. No, I remember the band. I just at that time, I don't know what I was doing, but I was listening to something else, I guess.
They're my favorite band. I
Excellent.
really love them a lot. We've touched upon, you're no stranger to playing video game characters. You were in both versions of Mega. Original Mega Man and T-Warrior. And just like how you were in Beast Wars, you were in Iron Claw in the second retelling
of G.I. Joe. Yes.
First one was when they went from Sunbow to Deke.
Right.
They employed some Canadian actors for that, and for that part of the series, they changed the theme song and the animation style. But then they decided to go for a more 90s feel, like with Generation 2 of Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
Your character was the antithesis to, I think, Sergeant Savage.
Right.
I remember seeing a couple of episodes of it, and I just wasn't able to relate to it because my brother was a fan of the original G.I. Joe. We had a couple of the VHSs, one of which I still have. But now I'm tempted to go back and watch it, like Conan the Adventurer, which I also watched.
Well, exactly, and there's Scotty is in so many of those episodes, and Janice and Stevie Valance, and that was so much fun. Conan was so much fun to do. I got to play so many different villains in that piece, and especially the 3-voiced set, which was an interesting discovery of how we were going to do that.
I've never seen anything about the original Conan the Barbarian. I only know what I saw.
Warrior without fear. He's more powerful than any man. His legend spreads across the land and sea.
Michael Donovan as Conan, and Scott McNeil as every villain that I didn't play. That was a good time had by all, certainly.
Given that there's a lot of other mainstream shows to compete with, aside from My Little Pony, you guys dominated that market, definitely. Were there ever times when you felt eclipsed by other voice actors that are like Jim Cummings, Frank Welker, Casey Kasem and Don Messick.
Oh gosh, no. It's like,
don't mean any offense, but
no, absolutely not. It's like in a theater company, you need the female lead, you need the older woman, you need the younger woman, you need the merchant, you need the guy the older guy, the young. Everybody has a place. Everybody has a thing. I don't begrudge anybody their success or their talent. I want everybody that I'm working with to be as good as they can be, so that the thing that we're working on can be as good as it can be. I don't care about accolades. I don't go to or watch award shows.
Boring.
Well, yeah, and it's apples and oranges.
I don't even know who half those people are.
Well, there's that. But how do you judge this performance against that performance? It's like two different pieces of literature. It's two different human beings. I just don't understand the need for someone to win. There's a theater award here in Vancouver, which I've never attended. And I've always said, if what we're trying to do is raise the awareness of theater in Vancouver, why don't we get a hold of one of the theaters in town, and each theater company will put on 10 minutes of its most favorite thing that they've done this year. And we'll invite the public for $5 a shot and say, come and see what we do. But no, people sort of want to take home their little statuette, you see. I just find it all kind of silly. So yeah, it's not about, where I fit in the hierarchy of voice actors on IMDb's list of the 500 best voice actors in the world. I don't care if I'm 501, as long as my phone number still gets used when people are looking for someone who can do the thing that I can do. That's the thing that I do. If you want that, come on down. You know what I'm saying?
I want to go back to that card captors question. And in fact, I do have a representation of you. It's just not an official card captors.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Card Captors was of course an ADR show that was drawn in Japan and then brought over. So the problem with those shows for me, and it's one of the frustrating things, I don't see the whole script. What I am presented with is my lines. Everybody is terribly paranoid that scripts are going to appear on the internet before the show is released. So there are non-disclosure agreements being signed, and the script is, well, now of course the script is in a plastic bag that nobody sees but you because of COVID, right? And all that nonsense. They're wonderful here. I mean, when I go into the studio has just been disinfected. The microphone they were using has been removed. A new microphone has been put in. The microphone that was being used is taken apart and cleaned piece by piece and left for 2 days before it's used again. So people are taking precautions, which makes me feel quite a lot safer than I might have otherwise. I didn't want to even be in a film set for the first while, even after the vaccine came out. I just thought, just too many people. Thank you very much. But that's not an answer to your question. Now I'm beginning to wonder what your question was.
Well, I didn't get exactly into the question. I by my impression of UA, because
right,
because his character split apart once your part of Kuro was separated from Matt Hill, and you went from being a stuffed animal to being this.
I didn't know that.
Well, I guess
this is what I mean. I don't. All I saw was my lines. It was very. Card Captors is one that I don't remember very well because I was not in it from the beginning, and by the time I was in it, it was like, yeah, we don't have time to explain this to you. Just can you say the line like this, because this other person said it like that. So sometimes it can be a little less creative than other times, and that is unfortunately a show that as I say, I just don't really remember very well. Strangely enough, a lot of Dragon Ball Z I don't remember very well for the same reason. It was like, just say your lines, get out of here.
Well, also another problem with Dragon Ball Z was this was done at Ocean Studios, right?
Yes, quite, yes.
Well, I talked with Lee about this also because he was Frieza, and I think you were part of the Frieza attack squad, I think.
Well, I was Ginyu. I was also for a while I played Oolong. Yeah.
So in America, I don't know if anywhere else, the Ocean dub, I don't think has seen the light of day.
Oh, no kidding.
Well, except for, like certain portions in this one special feature in the history of Trunks, where you actually hear Kirby Morrow's voice as Goku.
Mm-hmm.
But then later it transitions into Sean Schimmel and Christopher Sabat.
Interesting.
Anyway,
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes we lose the second season to the States, and sometimes the States loses the second season to us. It's just, that's business. And people trying to find the cheapest studio and the cheapest actors and the cheapest this and that and the other. So we have so little control over that stuff. It's like, oh, really? I'm working again? Yay! Oops, I'm not. Oh, well, too bad.
And it's definitely one of those things that us kids in the audience would not be able to ever pick up on, because
no.
All we know is, this guy sounds different. I thought Casey Kasem was the one who played Shaggy. Oh, this is Billy West. This is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. And then in the 3 movies that follow that, still no Casey Kasem, just Scott Inez. He did a pretty good job. But I mean, I've told Michael Bell, Greg Berger, everybody else I've interviewed, I'm what you call a voiceover purist.
Mm-hmm.
Supposing that, Paul Frees tried to do Bullwinkle's voice instead of Bill Scott, and you'd have to admit it would sound disconcerting. It would sound like claws on a chalkboard. Freeze wouldn't have the kind of chops that Bill Scott would have.
Well, it was like that one episode of, was it Cybertron? Where for some reason David Kaye was out of town and they brought me in to play Megatron?
I never actually saw a lot of the Unicron trilogy. I know that you were Vector Prime.
We're taking all 3 ships so we can transfer as much power as possible to your sword.
Yes, Optimus, and that extra firepower may come in handy when you face Galvatron. But the black hole must be your first priority.
I understand.
Vector Prime was my main character in the shows. Yes, they brought me in one time to play Megatron, and I kind of went, why don't you just wait for David to come back or get him to record from wherever he is? I sound nothing like David Kaye. And again, as I say, I don't do impersonations. They should have gotten you to.
We now return to voice overview.
I would have been honored to.
Well, and you would have done a much better job than I did. So there you go.
Well, sometimes it does happen. As a member of the audience, I can, reconcile the fact that there are deadlines to be done. And that's why you had Wally Burr do a line of John Stevenson's in the Transformers episode War Dawn, and Hal Rail filling in for voices in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Jim Cummings filling in for James Avery as Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe the episodes aren't perfect, but I mean, it still holds up, and they're there to be that temporary structure beam. So in a way, you were that girder that kept the set up. So
cool.
You shouldn't have to look at it as being good enough to match David Kaye. I mean, you're the one.
Well, I just it gets brought up at conventions all the time in the Q&As, and I kind of have to go, yeah, I know, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. That's what
I don't go to the conventions, but as a fellow fan, I can sort of see why they would ask that question.
Oh well, sure.
The voiceover buff overrides that, and that's
well, and that question. And how did I feel about the change in Rhinox's character for the Beast Machines? That's also a big question that people ask, and I go, well, I mean, that was the acting assignment, so I said. That's fine.
I didn't ask that because I wasn't even aware that you didn't voice Tanker. It was in one of Chris McFeely's videos.
Once again, it's been way too long since the Basics put the spotlight on a Beast Wars character. So this week, I thought it was time for a look at my own personal favorite Beast Warrior, Rhinox.
That he mentioned that you said that you met him a couple of times. I'm not sure.
I think we met. Where did we meet? In the States or in England? I can't remember now.
You said England.
Yes, well then it would have been in Manchester, which was I just had such a good time over there. That was really neat.
Those videos of his. I think he has one on Rhinox.
Yes.
And he has one about the primes, and Vector was one of the primes. Vector Prime was one of the 13.
Right.
And he's done a video on that. He's done videos on on all of them. Videos that I would never be able to top, so I don't even try.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we've been talking for, my gosh, an hour and a half. That's amazing. Well done.
I'm glad that I was able to keep you interested.
Oh no, this has been a fascinating conversation, Jeffrey. I really enjoyed it. Now, did you have anything else you wanted to ask before we sign off?
We were only down to the last question. It was just in your off hours away from the mic, who is the real Richard Newman?
Oh gosh, an ever-changing individual. As I say, I'm turning 75 in a couple of weeks. It's important to me to stay on the planet, to be on the planet, to be engaged. I love hanging out with younger people. I love listening to the music, watching the television or the films that people are watching now. I'm terrified of becoming irrelevant. Still excited about life. I am probably as content and as happy as I've ever been. And just want to keep working.
I am really honored that you would give me this chance, and I'm honored that I was the first to interview you in a long time. Thank you very much, Richard.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure, Jeffrey, and thank you for reaching out. And because now this has been enough fun that I'm going to look forward to doing it again.
I just hope that I'm not overshined by
I don't think so. No,
that's just a selfish thought right there, but I mean it's true. I will not 278 followers, so
I will not forget this interview. That's for sure.
If it hasn't been offered already, I offer you my friendship.
Well, thank you. I accept it gladly. Stay in touch.
It was a pleasure, Rhinox. Thank you,
and a pleasure as well, Jeffrey. You be well. You stay safe. Be well.
Live long and prosper.